Tonight, I'd like to bring you back to a military infirmary somewhere along the East Coast. Sometime in the winter of 1944, the windows rattle quietly in their wooden frames, and steam curls from a chipped mug of black coffee sitting on a desk. You sit alone in a side room, light from a kerosene lantern flickering across your face. Your fingers are ink-stained. You've just finished writing your 12th letter of the day. Not for yourself, of course. For them. Always for them. They say you have a gift. The way your words lift spirits. The way your smile never falters, even when your eyes betray how tired you are. But who lifts you? And why do you feel guilty every time you think about stopping? Have you ever smiled through exhaustion? Have you ever been told you're so good at helping others that no one notices you're quietly unraveling? Not because you're pretending, but because you've learned that being cheerful is safer than being honest. You don't have to answer. Just listen and let another lifetime speak for you. This is Sleep Through Lifetimes. Each night, we let the current of time carry us, while the mind drifts lightly across the surface of memory. Whether you're already comfortable or still finishing something, that's perfectly fine. No need to analyze or focus. Just let everything unfold as it is. Where and at what time are you listening from? Drop a line below. Perhaps someone far away is journeying with you right now. Before we set off, I don't need likes or subscribes. I only hope that if you drift off midway, your sleep will be calm and your heart as light as a leaf. All right, let's allow the road ahead to tell the rest. You are born in a small town that smells like damp leaves in October and warm cinnamon rolls in winter. The kind of place where neighbors borrow sugar without knocking, where summers are sticky and full of bees, and where every adult seems to know your name before you learn to spell it. Your parents aren't wealthy, but they're steady. Your father repairs watches in the back room of a jewelry store, and your mother teaches piano from home. Her voice always 3 notes behind the melody. From the time you can speak, people call you sunny, cheerful, easygoing. Even as a child, you absorb the room's tension like cloth soaks rain. When your uncle slams a door, you giggle to distract him. When your teacher cries at her desk, you hand her a flower and say nothing. Everyone says you're such a good girl, so sensitive, so thoughtful, always smiling. You get good at watching other people's faces before they speak. At age 8, you realize how often grown-ups lie without saying a word. But you also learn that if you smile at just the right moment, tension lifts like fog. So you become a little magician of mood, a fixer, a balancer. One day, your father tells you you're too young to be worrying about adult problems, but it's said like a compliment. You nod and smile. At school, your teachers praise your penmanship. There's something in your letters, a curl, a gentleness. that makes even your multiplication tables look soft. In high school, your classmates ask you to write their love notes. You always say yes. You write dozens of letters in other people's voices, apologies, affections, confessions. You never sign your name. It becomes your secret skill, stitching people closer with words you'll never get credit for, sometimes late at night. You wonder what your voice would sound like if you weren't trying to soothe someone else's storm. But those thoughts feel selfish, indulgent. You tuck them away like a childhood diary you're embarrassed to open. The world beyond your town whispers of bigger things. Radios hum with static and news. Soldiers march in black and white reels. The world is changing, and fast. When you graduate, everyone tells you that you'd make a fine secretary. Organized, pleasant, reliable. A glue person. You don't argue. Not because you agree, but because arguing feels like peeling your own skin. So you take the path of least resistance. Isn't that what good people do? You enroll in a shorthand course. Learn to type 90 words per minute. Learn to nod and smile, and disappear just enough to make others feel important. There's a boy, once, a soft-eyed neighbor who talks about building a new life out west. He says you make him feel calm, that your presence feels like tea after a storm. But he wants a partner with big dreams. Someone bold. You say you understand and wish him luck. Then you go home and rewrite his farewell letter 3 times before mailing it. The third version hurts less. As the war accelerates, the world around you changes faster than you can process. Men leave. Women train. Posters bloom on every building. We can do it. Your country needs you. Be the girl behind the gun. You feel a tug, not of ambition, but of responsibility. It's not a shout, just a quiet pulse beneath your ribs. You apply for a position at a military hospital, not on the front lines, but close enough to feel useful. You tell your parents you want to help in whatever way you can. Your mother smiles, half proud, half worried. Your father just nods, eyes watery but firm. He's always been good at hiding fear behind tools. The day you leave home, the sky is a slate-colored hush. Your little suitcase is packed with wool skirts, a few pressed blouses, and a pencil case that still smells faintly of lilacs. You don't cry, not because you aren't scared, but because you've trained yourself not to leak pain when others are trying to be brave. On the train, you write your first letter as a stranger in motion. You sign it to no one. But the handwriting is neat. Somewhere between station stops, it hits you this is not a detour. This is your life now. A new chapter not chosen, but accepted. That quiet decision you made back in high school, to say yes instead of maybe, has carried you here. You fold the letter carefully, tuck it into your coat pocket, and lean your forehead against the window. The countryside blurs past. For a second, you let your face go slack. No smile, no audience, just the whistle of the train and your own breath, soft against the glass. The hospital smells like antiseptic and old wood. You arrive in the middle of a storm, not a metaphorical one, but a real, howling gale that slams the doors and rattles the windows as if trying to get in. Your coat is soaked through by the time someone hands you a clipboard and asks if you can type. You nod. Of course you can. They don't ask where you're from or why you're here. In wartime, identity shrinks to utility. If you can hold a pen, if you can stay upright for 12 hours, if your hands are steady enough to copy names from casualty lists without smudging the ink, you belong. Your desk is in a small alcove off the hallway, sandwiched between a filing cabinet and the door to the mess hall. You can hear everything: the shuffle of boots, the coughs, the clipped orders. At first, it overwhelms you, but within a week you adapt. Your hands find rhythm on the typewriter. Your posture stays straight even when your spine protests. The key is to look helpful without needing anything in return. You quickly gain a reputation, not for brilliance or bravado, but for consistency. You remember things others forget. You deliver notes without having to be reminded. You smile when someone snaps, and you never cry, at least not where anyone can see. One evening, as you refill the ink in your fountain pen, a nurse leans over and says, "You've got a gift for writing, you know. The boys love the way you word their letters." You blink, startled. You hadn't realized the soldiers had noticed. She continues, "Some of them say your words feel warmer than their own mothers. Keep it up. It keeps them going. From then on, your role expands. You're still a secretary, technically, but soon you're asked to help with morale letters, dictated or scribbled in rough drafts by patients who are too tired or too embarrassed to write their own. At first, you just transcribe, but gradually they trust you to polish things. A line here, a word there, so their mothers don't worry too much, so their sweethearts don't cry at night, so it all sounds braver than it feels. You get good at this. Too good. You write 20, 30, sometimes 40 letters a day. You invent sunshine in mud-filled trenches. You insert jokes where fear once lived. You turn amputations into routine procedures and describe silence as peaceful reflection. The pen becomes your scalpel, trimming trauma into something edible. You keep a little box in your desk drawer for the notes that never make it out, the ones you write in your own hand, not for any patient, but to keep your mind intact. Half-formed sentences, unsent fragments, sometimes just a name. You don't know why you keep them, but you do. The nights are the hardest, fewer distractions. The weight of all the things unsaid settles over your shoulders like a wet blanket. You begin taking the late shifts, claiming you're a night owl. But really, it's because the quiet feels safer than forced conversation. At least in the dark, You don't have to explain why your hands tremble after writing that a soldier passed peacefully when he didn't. Occasionally, you wonder what your letters are really doing. Are they lies or a kind of mercy? You write one for a boy who just lost both legs. He's 17 and jokes that he'll never dance again. You turn that into a charming anecdote about learning to play piano instead. His mother writes back and says she cried, but with pride. That her son still has humor in him. That she's grateful to whoever helped him write. You read her note 3 times. Then tuck it under your mattress. You start walking the long way to your room, just to breathe colder air. Your smile stays intact, but your shoulders sag more often now. Some mornings, you forget whether you've eaten. You keep busy. There's always something to file, something to fix, someone to lift. You've trained people to expect steadiness from you. And now, they do. One night, a junior officer stops by your desk and leaves you a cup of coffee. You're a machine, he says, half joking. Don't think you ever blink. You smile, because that's what you do, and thank him. But the joke sticks. You start watching yourself in the mirror at night, practicing different smiles, testing how tired you can look without setting off alarms. You think about telling someone you need a break, but the words don't form. Every time you imagine speaking up, a voice inside says, "Others have it worse. You're lucky. Don't be dramatic." So you write, and write, and write. You memorize the cadence of other people's grief. You become fluent in stoicism. Sometimes, when you close your eyes, you can still see the pages, the loops of handwriting, the places where ink pooled just slightly from a heavy hand. It lingers like a watermark in your mind. You wonder, what would it feel like to write a letter for yourself? And then you blink, clear your throat, and pick up your pen again. There's always another soldier waiting. The letter begins with, "Dearest Mama," though it's not your mother. It's Private Lenny's. He's 19, missing 2 fingers, and has a stammer that makes dictation nearly unbearable for him. So he stares at his boots, cheeks red, and says, "Just tell her I'm doing fine, and that I miss her meatloaf." You smile gently and begin writing. But as your pen moves across the page, you feel something strange, a hollow where your own voice used to live. Lenny's words come through, but your own silence is louder. Every morning, there's a new stack of requests waiting on your desk. Letters to sweethearts, apologies to siblings, last words dressed up as cheerful news. You've started recognizing patterns. How the men soften their language when writing to wives. How they downplay pain. How they rarely mention fear, unless they're asking for it to be hidden. It's become your quiet craft, disguising despair as devotion. You no longer need to be told what to write. You anticipate what they're trying not to say. When someone pauses too long, you know they're thinking of home. When they change the subject too quickly, you can feel where it hurts. Sometimes, you finish a sentence before they do. They nod grateful, relieved that you've pulled the words from their chests like splinters. One soldier calls you the letter lady. Another simply says, "You make things sound like life ain't so bad." You smile each time. You've gotten very good at that. But the cracks are forming. Slowly. It begins with small things. A name misspelled, a sentence that loops halfway before trailing off. You catch yourself staring into space more often, unable to remember how long you've been sitting. At night, your hands cramp. You massage your wrists, shake out your fingers, and press forward. There's always one more letter to finish, one more story to sweeten. You begin sleeping in short bursts, your dreams littered with voices that don't belong to you. A mother saying, "Come home soon, sweetheart." A wife whispering, "Don't be brave if it means you won't come back." A brother's joke scribbled at the bottom of a goodbye. And in between it all, your voice trying to surface. But there's no space for her yet. One evening, a medic walks past your desk and mutters, "Don't know how you do it." That smile's bulletproof. You laugh lightly, but the words sting. Because somewhere inside, you've started wondering if the smile is welded on. You try to tell yourself that you're making a difference, that these letters help, that your words travel farther than your body ever could, and maybe they do. But at what cost? You find yourself taking longer walks, circling the edge of the hospital grounds, even in the cold. You stop in front of the chapel some nights, not to pray, but to rest your eyes against the stillness. There's comfort in walls that don't ask for anything. One night, you receive a letter, addressed to no one, signed with just a scribbled, "Thank you." It slipped under your door, folded unevenly. Inside is a drawing of a bird in flight, carrying an envelope in its beak. You hold it longer than expected. You don't know who sent it, but it feels like someone finally saw you. Not the cheerful secretary, not the efficient helper, but you. You tuck the drawing into your writing box. The next day, a nurse collapses in the hallway. You help her up. Later, someone thanks you for being so calm. You nod, but your stomach churns. Calm has become your currency, your coping, your armor. You remember when you used to write for fun. Poems in the margins of notebooks. Dreamy nonsense that made no sense to anyone but you. You haven't written for yourself in years, not even a line. Now, your words belong to others. Your voice, rented out to the broken and brave, and still they keep saying, "She's always smiling." Even when your shoulders ache, even when your voice feels like it's disappearing, there's a moment, just one, when you catch your reflection in the window. The lantern light catches your eyes, and they look older than your mother's. You stare for a long time, not moving. Then you smile, because someone's walking past. You always smile, even now. The snow thickens outside. The windows of the infirmary fog with breath and winter. Inside, your fingers don't move as quickly as they used to. Ink pools slightly on the page where you hesitate too long before writing the word hope. You're so very tired, but you don't say it aloud. You've never been good at announcing your own needs. They always feel like interruptions in someone else's crisis. So you wake before dawn. You fold blankets that aren't yours. You answer questions no one else hears. The letters keep coming. The soldiers keep asking. The nurses keep depending. And you keep writing. It's not that anyone is unkind. They praise you sometimes. They even thank you. But they don't see you, not fully. You're like the wall hook where people hang their grief for a moment, just long enough to breathe, then walk away lighter. And you carry it all. There's a rhythm now. Wake, work, smile, soften, repeat. You've become fluent in cheerfulness. But your body whispers truths in quieter ways. The occasional tremor, the skipped heartbeat, the way you sometimes stare at your hands and forget what they were doing. The nights are the worst. The infirmary slows but never sleeps. The moans from behind curtains, the sudden cries in the dark. They find their way into your marrow. You know each bed by the creak it makes, each patient by the way they breathe. There's a soldier in room 4, Private Mendez. He's got shrapnel near his spine and a tendency to crack jokes that make everyone uncomfortable. He calls you sunshine, with a crooked grin that hides more than it reveals. You ever get tired of faking it? He asks one night as you hand him a new stack of paper. You raise an eyebrow. Faking what? He shrugs. That everything's fine. That we're all gonna be okay. You smile reflexively. But then you pause. He doesn't look away. He's not being cruel, just honest. For once, you don't answer. You just sit beside his bed while he scribbles. The silence is new, heavy, kind. Later, in your room, you try to write a letter and your hand won't move. Not from pain, but from rebellion. Some part of you refuses. You stare at the blank paper and feel something like shame. You've built your worth on always showing up, always giving. What happens if you stop? In the hallway, someone laughs. The sound echoes, sharp and jarring. You close your eyes and breathe. The next morning, your supervisor mentions you've been skipping meals. You smile, deflect, say you're just too busy. She frowns, but lets it go. Everyone's running on fumes. You're no different, except you are. Because you've made it your mission to be the least needy person in the building. You absorb, you smooth, you don't ask, but it's catching up. There's a bruise on your arm from bumping into the cabinet. You don't remember when it happened. Your head aches more often. You've started misplacing names, mixing up stories. The kind of things that once would have horrified you. Now you just sigh and try again. One night, you forget to lock your writing drawer. A soldier wandering past slips in, looking for stationery. He finds your box, the one with your personal notes, your unsent fragments, your tiny cries scribbled in hidden corners. You find him holding one of the pages. Didn't mean to pry, he says, sheepish. Just, this looked like it was for no one. You take it from him gently. You don't yell. You don't explain. You just nod and put the paper away. That night, you burn 3 of your private letters. Not out of fear, but exhaustion. You're tired of holding even your own truths. The next day, someone delivers a tray of tea to your desk with no note. Just the cup, just the warmth. You hold it in both hands and realize, maybe someone did see. Just enough. But it's not enough to restore you, because you can feel yourself going hollow. Not in a dramatic way, but like the slow fade of a well-loved quilt. Threadbare in the places no one looks, you still smile, still write, still show up, but something inside has gone quiet. You're beginning to forget your own laugh, not because you're sad, but because you're empty. That somehow feels worse, and still you keep going. You keep smiling. Because you don't know what would happen if you stopped. It happens during a late shift, when the storm outside rages loud enough to shake the infirmary walls. You've just finished writing a letter for a sergeant who lost his eyesight, describing a sunrise he'll never see again. Your hands are trembling, but you tell yourself it's just the cold. You stand to stretch, your knees aching from hours at the desk, and that's when you notice someone lingering at the doorway. Not a nurse, not a patient in need. Just a man sitting quietly in the corner, watching. His name is Corporal Eames. You've seen him before. A head wound, healing well, and a reputation for asking too many questions. He's not like the others. Where most try to forget, he seems determined to remember everything, even the ugly parts. He tilts his head. Do you ever write anything real? The question lands with more weight than intended. You blink. What do you mean? Something true. Something that doesn't need polishing. You chuckle softly, trying to brush it off. I write what people need to hear. Do you ever need to hear anything? He asks. You hesitate, because the answer is yes, but also no one has asked before. He nods slowly, reading your silence. You don't have to keep smiling, you know, not with me. It's the strangest thing. You feel yourself recoil just slightly, as if he's reached into a drawer you forgot existed. You murmur a polite thank you and return to your work. But his words stay. For days, they echo. Do you ever write anything real? You begin noticing how automatic everything has become. The way you form the same phrases over and over. holding up just fine, looking forward to coming home, thinking of you always. You've become a ghostwriter of resilience, a factory of cheer. One night, you reread a stack of outgoing letters. One line strikes you. I barely feel like a person anymore. But please don't tell my. You don't remember writing it. But it's in your hand. You put down the pen and walk to the window. Snow falls in large, clumsy flakes. You touch the cold glass with your fingertips, as if trying to feel something beyond the page. When Corporal Eames next sees you, he doesn't ask anything, just offers you a blank sheet of paper and says, "For you, no one else." You don't write on it that night, but you keep it. That week, your body starts to falter more noticeably. You forget entire conversations. You misplace letters. One evening, you stare at your hands for 5 minutes straight, not moving, just listening to your own pulse. The smile still comes. It's trained into your muscles. But it feels foreign now, like someone else's coat hanging on your shoulders. Corporal Eames visits your desk less often, but when he does, he brings silence. And oddly, it's the one thing that helps. Not his charm, not his questions. Just the quiet, like being allowed to not perform. Then one evening, as you prepare another dictated letter, he says, "I remember everything from the day I got hit, the sound of gravel, the panic, and then this warm voice reading someone else's words to me." You glance up. It wasn't yours. He continues, "But I knew someone like you had written them. I remember thinking, whoever wrote this, I hope they have someone writing back to them." You don't respond, because if you open your mouth, something raw might fall out. Instead, you nod. That night, you pull out the blank page he gave you. You stare at it until your eyes blur. And then, for the first time in years, you begin to write, not as someone's echo, not as a patch for a wounded spirit, but as yourself. The first line reads, "I don't know how to be tired out loud." You pause. And then, gently, "But I'm ready to try." Your handwriting is shaky, but it's yours. No fake cheer, no softened truths, just ink and ache and honesty. You finish the page and fold it carefully. It feels like breath returning. You don't show it to anyone, but you tuck it into your box, the one with your fragments. And this time, it stays. In the hallway, a door closes softly. You're still smiling, but now it's not a mask. It's the sound of something inside you, shifting. The ink is still damp when you fold the letter. You place it carefully beneath the stack of outgoing mail. Not to be sent, but to hide it for now. It's the first thing you've written. That wasn't for someone else in. You don't even know how long. The words feel strange on your tongue if you read them aloud, like rediscovering a melody you used to hum before anyone expected anything from you. You start a habit, soft and secret. Each night, After the official letters are finished and the infirmary begins to dim, you write one more, just for yourself, not always full letters. Sometimes just a sentence, sometimes a question. Once, a single word repeated 3 times enough. Enough, enough. You don't show them to anyone, but you stop burning them. It's like you've unlocked a door in a house you forgot was yours. One night, while the nurses hum a lullaby down the corridor, you write something that surprises you. I used to believe I had to earn rest, but what if I don't? You stare at it for a long time. There's no answer, but you feel your breath settle in a different way. Lower, truer. The next morning, Corporal Eames catches you before breakfast. I had a dream, he says, eyes twinkling. You were writing letters to yourself, but they kept folding into wings and flying out the window. You blink, startled. He laughs softly. Probably means nothing, but you look it peaceful. You smile. Not because you're supposed to, but because it feels good to. You begin noticing things again. The way the morning light catches the edges of the filing cabinet. The way the soup ladle squeaks against the metal pot. Little details you'd blurred out while running on auto. Your hands still ache. Your body is still tired, but the weight feels different now. Not heavier or lighter, just yours. You still write for the soldiers, of course. You still soften harsh truths and paint futures where none are guaranteed. But some nights, you sneak something more honest into the lines. A phrase like, "It's okay to rest," or, "You don't have to smile all the time." You imagine some sweetheart or mother reading it, wondering if their son wrote that part himself, and maybe he did. Or maybe you did, but either way, someone needed to hear it, and that's enough. You start talking to the other girls more, too. Not just with politeness, but with presence. You ask how they really are, and when they ask you back, you don't deflect. Well, not always. One evening, Nurse Delaney tells you that your face looks different lately. Like you're still tired, she says, but you've stopped fighting it. You laugh and surprise yourself with how easy it sounds. Maybe I've just run out of pretending. She nods, then links her arm through yours. Welcome to the club. Corporal Eames is discharged 2 weeks later. His bandages are gone, and though the scar on his temple still catches the light like a warning, his gait is steady. Before he leaves, he places a folded envelope on your desk. You wait until the end of your shift to open it. Inside is a single sheet of paper. One sentence. You write for everyone else. Just don't forget. Someone out there is reading for you, too. No signature. No date. You trace the handwriting with your thumb. Then you tuck the letter into your box, next to the one you wrote about earning rest. That night, you don't write anything. You just sit at your desk, candle flickering low, and let your hands be still. It feels like permission. It feels like something being rewritten inside your bones. You remember the first time someone called you Sonny. You were 5, holding a balloon that slipped out of your fingers. You cried and then smiled when your mother looked sad. You've been trying to protect people from your own pain ever since. But now, here you are, older, quieter, still gentle, and finally allowing yourself to feel both. The fatigue doesn't vanish. The workload doesn't shrink. The war hasn't ended. But something has shifted inside you. Not a collapse, a loosening. You still write. But now, sometimes you write with yourself, not around yourself. And somehow that makes all the difference. It happens just after a snowstorm. One of those mornings where the world outside the infirmary seems soft, edged and muffled. The air smells like boiled potatoes and wood smoke, and your hands are unusually cold despite the gloves. You've been moving more slowly these past few days, but no one comments. Everyone's too busy holding themselves together. You sit at your desk, writing a letter for a soldier whose lungs are giving up on him. He doesn't want to say goodbye to his wife, so you find other ways to write it. Gentle phrases about memory and dreams and walking along the coast. You're halfway through the final paragraph when your vision blurs. You blink, shake your head, but the letters on the page slip sideways, smearing into nonsense. Your hand goes limp. For a moment, you think you've simply fallen asleep sitting up. That happens sometimes. But this is different. Your breath shortens. Not in panic. More like your body has decided it's had enough without consulting you. You try to stand. The floor tilts. Someone shouts. A chair scrapes. Then darkness. When you wake, you're not in your room. You're in one of the infirmary beds, the same ones you've written for, prayed over, patched up with careful optimism. The irony isn't lost on you. Nurse Delaney sits nearby, arms crossed, scolding you with her eyes. Exhaustion, she says. Severe. You didn't faint. You collapsed. You try to apologize, because of course you do. But your throat catches. She stops you. No. You don't get to be sorry for being human. It's the first time anyone said that to you. Not in those words. You cry. Not from pain, but from the sheer shock of permission. You're forced to rest for 3 days. No writing, no walking the halls, just stillness, boredom even. At first, it feels like punishment, like failure. But soon, something shifts. You begin to notice how good it feels to be cared for, even just a little. To have someone bring you tea without needing anything in return. To sleep through a full night without guilt, gnawing at the edge of your dreams. One evening, Nurse Delaney returns with a stack of letters for you. Dozens. From soldiers. Some are short, scrawled thanks, simple goodbyes. Others are pages long, sharing stories they hadn't dared say aloud. Some of them remember things you forgot you wrote. A metaphor about birds, a phrase about sunlight through ash. One man says, "Your letter saved his life," that it made him want to believe in something again. You read every single one, slowly, over hours, letting each word reach parts of you that had gone numb. Your chest feels full. Your body feels like yours again. One letter comes unsigned. It says simply, "Your voice stitched me back together. Please don't lose it now." You press it to your chest. Later that night, you sit by the window with a blanket around your shoulders and begin writing again. Not for duty, not for anyone else. This time, you write a letter addressed to yourself. It's not poetic. It's messy, even. The ink smudges halfway through when your hands tremble, but the words are clear. You did not fail by breaking. You only failed by waiting so long to stop. You read it twice, then fold it carefully, as if it's something sacred. The next morning, you ask for an envelope. You address it to the girl who smiled too long. And instead of hiding it, you place it on the outgoing mail pile. It's not going anywhere, but the gesture matters. It's a way of saying, "I see you. I won't forget you again." Later that day, you return to your desk, slower, softer, but real. The pile of letters awaits. But now, there's a difference. You take a breath before beginning. You sip your tea while writing, not between gasps of urgency. And when someone says, "You're back," you smile, genuinely this time, and say, "Yes, I think I finally am." The war continues. The work never truly ends. But you've learned something most people never do: the cost of quiet collapse, and the rare, brave joy of choosing to return to yourself. One word at a time. Recovery changes your rhythm. The rush that used to define your days slows, not because the workload lessens, but because you do. And somehow, the world doesn't fall apart. You still write for the soldiers, still coax meaning from their fear, still wrap their pain in gentler language. But now, you also pause between letters. You breathe. You step outside to feel the wind, instead of just watching it blow through the cracks in the window. There's a different kind of strength in you now, not the brittle resilience you once wore like armor, but something warmer, softer, a quiet steadiness that comes from seeing yourself clearly and not looking away. One afternoon, while sorting incoming mail, you find something unusual, a letter addressed to the one who wrote for me. There's no return address, no name. Inside, a shaky hand has penned, "I never got to say thank you, but your words felt like home when everything else was foreign. I'm still here because of you." You sit back in your chair and blink hard. Then you open the second envelope. It's from a woman, a nurse you barely remember helping months ago. She writes, "You probably think no one notices the glue people. But we do. We just don't know how to say it in the moment. So I'm saying it now." Each day after that, a few more trickle in. Letters, notes, even a tiny pressed flower wrapped in brown paper with the words, "For the ink-stained angel." You laugh at that one, out loud, and it echoes through the office like music. Nurse Delaney peeks her head in, eyebrows raised. "You okay?" You nod. "Just remembering I exist." She chuckles. "Welcome back." The most unexpected message arrives in a worn envelope with smudged handwriting. From a soldier you don't recall writing for. His words are blunt, honest. "I was ready to give up. Thought no one cared. Then someone handed me a letter. Said it was from a secretary. I read it twice. And then I waited one more day. I'm still waiting, I guess. But it feels different now." You stare at that one for a long time, because you remember that week, how tired you were, how hollow you felt, how you almost didn't finish the shift. But somehow, something you wrote in that haze of fatigue stitched itself into someone's will to keep going. It startles you. The idea that your smallest offerings carried weight. Even when you felt weightless, you begin saving these letters in a new box. Not to gloat, not as trophies, but as reminders that even when you feel invisible, your presence leaves footprints. Even the quietest kindness echoes. One evening, after lights out, you sit with Corporal Eames's note in your lap again. You trace the sentence with your finger. Someone out there is reading for you, too. You whisper it once, aloud, just to hear what your voice sounds like saying something meant for you. Then you write a response, not to him, exactly, but to that part of you that never expected anyone to notice. You write, "I don't need everyone to see me, just enough to remind myself I'm not fading." The words feel like water after a drought. The next day, you return to your rounds. A boy with bandaged eyes asks if you'll read his mother's reply. You sit beside him and read slowly, letting the warmth in her words coat the room. When you finish, he asks, "Can I write her back?" You smile. "Of course." He hesitates. "But I don't know what to say." You place a hand on his arm. "Start with this. I'm still here." He grins. "Yeah, that's good." And it is. Because sometimes that's all you need. I'm still here. So are you. And that matters. More than you ever believed it could. The letter is buried under a stack of old drafts, hidden in the back of your writing drawer like a secret you forgot you'd been keeping. It's yellowed slightly at the edges, the ink faded but still legible. You unfold it slowly, fingers trembling just a little. You recognize the handwriting instantly. It's yours, from before the collapse, before the soft unraveling, before you let yourself be seen. You don't remember writing this one, but it's undeniably yours. The curving letters, the slight tilt of your lines when you're tired. It begins simply, "To the version of me who still believes she has to earn rest." Your throat tightens. You read every line like you're listening to a voice long buried. The words aren't elegant. They don't try to impress. They are honest, a little uneven. Like someone who had never been allowed to speak freely before, and wasn't sure how much was too much. You are not selfish for needing. You are not weak for pausing. You are not failing anyone by falling asleep before everything is done. You reach the end, no signature, just a final thought. You deserve a life that doesn't require you to break in order to be seen. You fold it back up, hands resting in your lap. The room is quiet except for the scratch of snow against the window panes. Something stirs in you. A thought, a knowing, and before you can talk yourself out of it, you pick up an envelope. You address it simply. To the girl I used to be. There's no real destination for this letter. No mailbox. No name on the roster. But that doesn't matter. You walk out into the evening air, the sky a dull lavender, and slip the envelope into the outgoing mail crate like any other. And in doing so, you let her go, not as a dismissal, but as an offering, a thank you, a release. That night, your dreams are gentler. You walk barefoot across a meadow that smells like lilacs and old paper. In your dream, there's a younger version of yourself sitting on a hill, hair windblown, hands stained with ink. She looks at you, curious, cautious, and when you sit beside her, she leans into your shoulder. You don't speak. You just breathe together. When you wake, there's sunlight on your blanket and a warmth in your chest you haven't felt in years. You realize something simple and profound, that not every wound must close before you can begin again. That letter you mailed, the one to your younger self, may never reach a physical place, but its journey was never about that. It was about acknowledgement, and in some quiet, mysterious way, it did reach her. It reached you. Later that day, you find a note pinned to your door. There's no name, just a torn scrap of paper that reads, "I saw your letter. I think I needed to read it too." You smile. A real one. Not the mask, not the performance. Just you. For the first time in a long while, you feel something you'd nearly forgotten. Not joy, exactly, but wholeness. And that's enough. That's more than enough. The war ends not with fanfare, but with a strange, uncertain silence. A radio announcement, muffled cheers, a few spontaneous embraces in the hallway. And then, stillness. Like the world exhaled, then didn't quite know what to do with all the air. You stand beside the window, the one that always fogs in the winter, and watch the trees shift with the breeze. It's spring now. Somewhere along the line, the snow melted, the soil softened, and you didn't even notice. It doesn't feel like a finish line. More like someone tapped your shoulder and whispered, "You can set it down now." You stay for a few more weeks, helping with final letters, coordinating departures, writing farewells for soldiers who aren't sure how to explain what they're returning to. Some ask you what to say to their wives. Others don't know if home even feels like home anymore. You listen, you help, you soften their words still. But now, you write your own words too. Every evening, after supper, in a small leather-bound book. Your own thoughts, without translation or apology. And then the day comes when you're offered a permanent post, a position in the capital, with better pay and higher rank. They tell you it's a way to keep serving. They say you're too valuable to lose. You nod politely, thank them, and then you say no. The word surprises even you. You leave the building slowly, feeling the gravity of what you just turned down. A future made of familiar sacrifice, of continued invisibility, of predictable usefulness. Instead, you board a train heading west. You don't have a grand plan, just a small suitcase, a bundle of old letters, and a quiet conviction that your worth doesn't depend on constant giving. You settle in a small town with wide skies and gentle evenings. No sirens, no shift bells, just silence, birdsong, and a bakery that smells like cardamom in the mornings. You rent a little room above the post office. The irony makes you smile. You take a job at the local library, organizing the shelves, helping children find books with dragons and detectives. No one knows your history. No one calls you sunshine. You're just the kind woman with the ink-stained hands who always returns books with extra bookmarks. Occasionally, you write letters for others, not because you have to, but because you want to. A boy to his brother overseas, a woman to the man she's trying to forgive. You help them find their voices, not replace them. And you keep writing for yourself. Not every day, not always beautifully, but consistently, honestly. Your smile changes too. It still comes easily. But now it arrives from inside, not as a reflex, but as a ripple. One morning, a girl in the neighborhood brings you a crumpled note. Her grandfather, a veteran, says he thinks you once wrote to him during the war. You unfold the paper and recognize your own handwriting, your phrases, your rhythm, softened with time. You sit with that for a while. The girl asks, "Was it really you?" You nod. She smiles. He still keeps it in a box under his bed, says it got him through the worst winter. You laugh, gently, not out of disbelief, but because life is so odd sometimes. You wrote thousands of letters. You thought they vanished into silence. But here it is, returned by a child's hand, like a feather drifting home. You spend that evening rereading your old journals. Some pages are angry, others are raw with sadness, but many are simply tender. You didn't realize you'd been learning to love yourself one sentence at a time. Later, you sit by the window and write a new letter. This one is for no one, or maybe for anyone. You write, "I used to think healing meant returning to who I was before, but now I know it means becoming who I never had the space to be." You pause, let the ink dry, And as the sun dips below the hills, you feel something deep inside you shift again. Not loudly, but clearly. Not closure, not triumph, but peace. The years pass the way gentle rain falls, steady, quiet, unannounced. You grow older, but not in a way that feels like loss. More like softening, like the edges of a stone worn smooth by time and river. You still live above the post office, though the bakery has changed owners 3 times. Children grow up and wave to you from bicycles. The librarian lets you shelve the poetry section because you always put the books in the order that makes people feel better, even if it's not alphabetical. Sometimes you catch your reflection in the glass of the front door and barely recognize her. Not because age has altered your face, but because your expression has. There's a weightlessness there now. You still smile, but it isn't armor, it's weather. It comes and goes, natural and unforced. You receive letters sometimes, old comrades writing from far-off cities, their penmanship looser, their words softer. One man writes to say he finally cried, decades after the war, and it felt like a second kind of freedom. Another sends you a photograph of his family with a note. I owe this life to the stranger who made me believe I had one waiting. You frame that one. It hangs by your writing desk. You no longer write every day, but when you do, it's not to fill a void. It's to witness, to remember, to leave small breadcrumbs of truth behind for anyone who might stumble upon them. One afternoon, you find an envelope tucked under your door. No return address. Inside is a drawing. A small bird carrying an envelope in its beak. You smile. It's the same sketch someone once left you during the war. You kept the original for years, then lost it during a move. You press the drawing to your heart. It feels like a full circle closing, or maybe a loop still spinning gently. On your 73rd birthday, a group of school children visits the post office for a class tour. One girl, wide-eyed and curious, asks you, "Were you always this calm?" You chuckle. "Oh no, sweetheart. I used to be a knot." Oh, she giggles, not understanding, but sensing something kind. That night, you sit by the window again, same blanket wrapped around your knees, and watch the moon cast silver patterns on the floorboards. You write one last letter, not because something hurts, but because something wants to be released. To whoever needs this, you don't have to earn your breath. You don't have to keep smiling through the ache. It's okay to be seen in your tiredness, your silence, your unfinishedness. There is a kind of beauty in being a work in progress that no one applauds but you. You don't sign it. You slip it into a book on your shelf, pressed between 2 poems that talk about war and wind and the smell of rain on old paper. And then you let it go. You make tea. You water your plant. You hum a tune from your childhood without remembering the lyrics. When you lie down that night, your pillow smells faintly of ink and lavender. And for the first time in a long while, you fall asleep not from exhaustion, but from peace. The past no longer tugs. The future no longer threatens. You are held in time, in rest, in the gentle rhythm of a life reclaimed. The letters you once wrote, they live on, folded into drawers, framed on walls, tucked into journals, memorized by those who thought they'd been forgotten. But the most important letter, you wrote that one to yourself, and you listened. Now the room is quiet. The paper has been folded, the candle burned low. The night leans in around you, not heavy, but tender, like a friend who knows it's time to sleep. Your breath moves slowly now, like waves smoothing out after a long tide. And the stories, all those stories you once carried for others, drift gently toward the horizon, no longer clinging, just passing by like clouds across a soft sky. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your mind unspool like a roll of ribbon unraveling across a polished wooden floor. You don't have to be the strong one tonight. You don't have to be the writer, or the caretaker, or the smile that holds everything together. You are allowed to rest, not because everything is finished, but because you are. You might not remember any of this tomorrow, but the dream will go on.